Diaries and their function. I'm about to do a hip hip hooray for my soul. I keep predictions in a journal that I keep online. I also will instigate some direct hits from certain people when I post things about the predictive process when it involves sports plays. I am not here to tell people how to be in this world, but when I am just randomly receiving messages of love for myself, right? I know that my soul knows what I'm going to post on Twitter or on Facebook or whatnot. And if there was something to be bet on, it would have been one of those home runs, correct? My own soul is giving me the time of my life in many ways. And we joke about each other's integrity over those who would say this is an unethical woman for posting scores. No, I'm not giving actual information that people could use to do the play-by-play, but that was exactly what that was. And why I utilize that, and then why I go to that length of posting those messages of prediction, right? That's the forecasting, okay? Is so that people can understand how detailed and specific your own souls can be for you about what's coming and what path you're traversing, what path you're traveling. Okay, that's a fancy word for traveling, or walking. Okay. When we do the diary work, which in many ways is what these videos are, you will see personal snapshots, not only in these videos, but in the articles that I write. And sometimes I will comment even on the post with images of pictures about what's going on. If you see a category that comes up, understand most likely it is something I am working with in that moment. So for me, sports is a beautiful expression of love. I have so many fans of the Giants screaming at me, why didn't I tell them that they were going to win in that series? It's not about telling people who are utilizing it for betting purposes. This is one of those ways in which it is a direct and non-threatening approach to future predictive visions for those who are already on that path of I'm guiding myself to being of psychic vision. It's more than psychic. This is how detailed and explicit your souls can be in the information when you work with me. Not that I'd be giving you a home run, right? Or two. Okay. These are those souls that are starting to understand the nature and importance of diaries. And we want to talk about the pros and cons of diary keeping in essence. And one of those things that many will say is there is no bad. So we're not going to discourage anyone from writing diaries. It can be an instrument of betrayal for some, if they were to perhaps search back in their diaries and see what they did or didn't do when they were younger. How many people are utilizing them to create from? I go back in my past and I relive the moments of memories. Okay, now those memories are of beauty always, whether they are of sadness or joy. And yet, how many are asking themselves, did I put myself in a better place upon reflection of my past? This is where many are starting to see Brenda rise up in that vision of, I don't dwell on the past very often. I have recovered a lot of my soul's wisdom from my past that hasn't been dealt with. And it's a painful process for those of us that are just assuming it's the sad or negative that we shoved aside versus those things that I haven't quite cleared out yet. That's really what happens when you go through this process. Some of us, however, are doomed to fail is what some would say, thinking that all diaries are precious gems for the future. That's where my soul is, right? Oh my gosh, she needs to have her work done, right? She's not keeping a daily journal. She's keeping a tally of her progress in certain ways. In other ways, there's aspects of how do I motivate myself to do more of who I am that needs guidance and vision questing. You see, that's the nature of my love of my soul. My soul knows where I'm headed. My soul knows I love sports, but I'm not able to participate in that excitement of it. I love the Giants. The A's were supposed to bring visions of love as well, right? So I also have some family members who are fans of the A's, but the Giants fans in my family were definitely happy that day, okay? I don't relish the vision of looking up statistics on baseball players, but that baseball player who I highlighted was very much on fire at that moment. And he's like, I know how to hit the home runs that mattered. It was the one that put them over the edge in that series because it highlighted the vision of we can make it through this series without another loss. That's how brilliant those souls are. Now, had she been sitting somewhere else other than the theater, watching a movie or getting ready to watch a movie, that's where she was. She knows when she hears those stats, she's writing them down. Because that's the strength of what you hear, right? And when she's on it, she's on it. She doesn't revel in the gloating of her predictions because some of them are very strong and not pleasant. And so that's why she takes joy in those freewheeling, happy baseball players or football players or whatnot that are willing to come through and guide her to a joy of the game. That doesn't mean she bets. She doesn't bet and she doesn't encourage the betting. She has people that she knows that would indeed play some bets potentially, but that's nor here nor there. What we want to highlight with the diaries and the functions of them, or the function, is to repeat the past. Go back, reflect upon the diary that said I was a winner that day. How many of us look back to see our successes versus our, quote, failures or our weeping moments? Do you know how many people are keeping sentimental journeys locked away in their hearts for good? I've put away the past until it comes again, is what many say. You see, these are those patterns of redemption that many are seeing when they can't figure out, why does this soul, as Brenda's been hearing from, keep coming up to me and asking me for my number, right? She's being told about her future loved one of soul, okay? People will have to figure out what that is. It's no one on the screen. It's going to be at some point, because I have very few fans at this point who are ready to delve into the vision of vision questing via a daily journal. It can be a helpful thing. It can also be a reflective tool of discovery of my pain. Okay? And when we utilize that work, we have to understand that we're not expressing ourselves in our emotions, in our beauty, in our wisdom. They are guided for many. How many people are treasuring those journeys of those of us who've made it to the other side, right? Of that vision of I'm no longer, quote, mentally unstable, okay? These are those souls who come through the pain of redemption, perhaps, if that's your soul's wisdom, is you're on the path of redemption, versus I'm aiming for the moon and I'm highlighting the wisdom of every single September. This is my birthday month that will be coming up. I get to highlight everyone else's birthdays, and that's the vision. So when my soul says you're going to a party, it's also about doing that vision for myself. Okay, so these are those reflective moments that I often neglect to tell people, right? Those visions of who's coming through and why. Do I place the burden of blame on others for my emotions? Often. And that's where we need to go with Brenda sometimes, because she's like, oh, this hurts me so much when I hear these messages of love from somebody else from my past, because I want to move on from the pain of their redemption. You see, sometimes people are looking into those diaries and assuming that some of it was meant to be saved. Okay? Some of those beautiful memories are to be saved and cherished and adored for all of us who make it through this process of reuniting with our own souls and coming through with the wisdom not only for ourselves but potentially others. Many will choose not to go out and try to, convince others that they need to be sold on the predictive powers in order to give guidance. It's not just about finding out your future. It's about aligning with your hearts, and your minds are your biggest weapons, usually against yourself or others. Okay? And that's the field of vision that Brenda was operating in. Oh my gosh, I don't understand. I don't understand why they keep coming to me. And I just want to be free from their pain of rejection that I gave them in this past lifetime. Right? How many are working with this ideas of past lifetimes? Okay? This is why others are saying, oh, there's something stuck there. There's no need, in essence, to focus on what did or didn't happen unless you see a pattern. But once you go to the vision of, I have my soul on board, they would tell you if you needed to know anything. Or the creative process of discovery of a pattern might just be that, one of those things that you came to learn in this lifetime. Okay? How many people are learning the lessons by reflecting on the past, seeing the patterns at play, right? And realizing I have more information at my fingertips than what I even know. I love who I am. Once I start highlighting the beauty of who I am as a soul, people start to get on board. Okay, it doesn't mean I'm fighting with friends and family members, directly on this plane, but I've had my issues with their souls. Now, what does that mean? It's because I'm pretending that they are somehow still here. So some of those visions of love that feel like they're still here have actually already crossed over and are reuniting with others on other planes. So this is where it gets very tricky. And this is why it can be such a confusing process. So unless you know how to deal with the multiple dimensions that we reside in, right? We're multidimensional love beings. And we can find ourselves in a pickle. And that's why we want people who are writing those books of discovery of who they are to cherish them forever. They will be cherished for generations of those of us from the future who are saying, we need your wisdom, we need your guidance. How did you make it through the dark times, as someone would say? It was the hellish realm for some people that I had to travel because they themselves put me there in their minds. That's how those systems work for us sometimes. Okay? This is why Brenda rejects all souls that come to her with that vision that there is the duality of heaven and hell, unless you want to go to that vision of I'm redeemed in the vision of it. Okay, it was never part of my upbringing. But because I honor the vision of where everyone else is in their minds, right? It's the creative catastrophe is what some people would say, thinking that it is somehow a demeaning of their vision. But if you've never gone through this process of redemptive qualities versus the heavenly hell that everyone keeps pretending they're working with, okay, it's not always a joyful presentation that I make. I've had my down days for sure. Very little go as long as what I did just a couple days ago. I didn't feel right. I was sad. I wasn't joyful for sure. I was like a lump on a log. I could have wrote down my vision, but instead I'm like, I'm just going to feel my way through this world. I'm just going to let it subside. I already understand what it is. And I know that it's a letting go again of those souls who think that it's fun to hurt someone in their minds. That's why we do what we do. We open up to the nature of love of ourselves first and foremost. And at some point, those visions don't get us reacting in the same way. This is why Brenda was told it's a reaction to a stimulus only. Okay? Our emotions are often just reactions to different stimulus. Stimuli is technically it. And that can kind of set you free from that idea that it can't be more objective about what it is. Some of them are meant to hurt because of where we found ourselves with others on this plane and where we did our, quote, damage to their hearts. Okay, knocking people down off their feet in the emotional realm is where Brenda went with a couple of souls, literally taking their breath away. Okay, and that means I owned it. I took responsibility for my part in those stories. And yet I reunited in the love realm with them. And so when I start to reject the vision of, I don't want to be with you in this realm, it means that I'm still highlighting another as a possibility for me. That's why those idea of multiple partners can get very interesting when you go through this process, because you hear from that vision of what you've created. How many are afraid to go through that process now? You know, it's very significant that you hold yourself up high when you go through this process. And if you aren't able to, then hold on to your hats and glasses because it's going to be an interesting ride. The vista is beautiful now. She was climbing up the mountain and she said, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And then she said, now I'm ready to see the vista. I'm here to just enjoy the view. And that's why we want people to enjoy the view. So please, if you're just writing about the negativity in your life, think carefully. Rejoice in those moments of, I'm a victor in this, well, not the war on drugs. There's another soul that was coming through based on something else I was focused on, which was a tragic story. Okay? And this is that nature of why we can sometimes have influences that come into these visions. So this is going to be a short video. If you have a diary, the function of it in your life is a reflection point on who you are, correct? At each moment in your journey, did you always have a colliding with another person? These are those stories that people will say, I was fighting like cats and dogs with this soul every day, it's like all year long. Right? Sometimes we have to let go of the idea that we're fighting and arguing with ourselves and instead say, what is it I'm here to learn about who I am? And that's where those journeys of reflection can often show you the way to who you are in your mind. But your soul will give you so much more reflection than what you can even imagine. You were the breaking of others' hearts, Brenda, is where she was. I've done that work. It hurts to have it come back to me from their perspective. Not easy. Okay, it's not a revenge vision. It's a clearing out of the energy, the pain, the processing of emotions that I hung on to because I kept reinforcing the idea that I was to blame for the most part. And then I decided to take the responsibility and the accountability of my own choices. And I assumed that they themselves would also do the same. That's why I'm a higher vision than just let me love you for who you are. I expect to know what's going on and why things happened the way they did for the most part. So many people will start to see the beauty of the patterns revealing a beautiful future for them. And that's why Brenda doesn't really stop and take stock of her future. She's in the moment. And she's not in the past. And yet the past comes to her. That's her playbook. And she was revealing to us, I'm not listening to my soul's wisdom. I forgot to write that down. I have so many hits and misses, right? Very, very, very few misses when it comes to the forecasting. All of those are play-by-play paths of her vision. She has a very simple life in her mind. That's how she claims it to be. But all those choices are such random and extremely highly attuned visions. That's why we encourage everyone who is watching this, start taking notes of those intuitive hits. I am that kind of soul. Get yourself a watch with a note-taking app. Write them down. Keep them coming. Those intuitive hits will build on each other. That wisdom of, oh, I'm receiving soul guidance. My intuition is often from my mind, but man, when it comes through, that's often your soul giving you that sudden insight that you claim is just of the mind. It's where I myself landed many years ago, that feeling. There's pattern recognition, and then there's guidance, and then there's soul vision and forecasting, which means once you have your soul on board, if you are truly in the vision of my soul knows who I am and what I love, they won't steer you wrong. Even if some of those steps along the way can be a little painful. It might take a step in the wrong direction to get you back on the path you were supposed to be 10 years ago. That's where I was. I was supposed to be in a different path 10 years ago. And I had to readjust my vision due to the nature of my own savior complex. Let's look at it like that. I was trying to save everyone around me from themselves. That's the nature of why I encourage everyone to look into those visions of who they feel like they are versus what your soul is telling you who you are. I'm here to ruffle some feathers with my information. Okay? That's what happens when you're able to bring through the wisdom with the predictive capabilities of the future to explain to people why we're creating what we're creating and what it is we're to learn from those visions. It feels good when I'm in this mode, by the way. And so what I want to influence people is before you start your journey of soul vision or whatever it is that you're going to do, because if you're watching this, you're already aligning with the vision of my soul's got my back, because that's what I grant each soul. Your soul has got your back. Your soul knows what's best for you. If you're a free flying, I don't give a blank about what my soul wants, I'm just going forward, that's when you can get a little interesting for your soul. I fight some of those things that I get told. And that's the nature of when you give guidance to others, you're going to get an influx of other souls that want to have a say in who you are. And that's why you want to be free and clear of other visions before you go out to start to give other people their own guidance. I learned that the hard way a little bit. And in fact, one of my friends and I have set up this dynamic, and I'm not going to reinforce it forever. But when we talk and I try to give her the visions of, here's a message, it doesn't resonate. And it's because we're so close to each other. We're like sisters in certain ways. And she's like, I reject that vision of, it's like spirituality, but it's unwinding itself slowly. I've had to fight my way through the vision by utilizing written forecasting for most people, for people to understand. And prediction is one of those ways when you can do the values of love of soul. You don't have to go that path, but man, if you go to the public, people want to understand, what can my soul do for me? It's more than just making money with it. It's a loving, unconditional energy you work with. And when you're sad, they're there. When you're mad, they're there. When you're, flying high, you're feeling good. And then you come back down, and the day-to-day grind can kind of get a little hard. And that's when Brenda goes into her soul and says, give me something for everybody. And she starts to bring through the reality of what it's like for certain souls. Someone else has an issue with this on the screen. This can be a very hard place for certain people to deal with. Okay? And we want you to understand, we know your pain. We know your pain. That was what Brenda was working with as well. She's not as highly attuned to the medical intuition as she wants to be, because in essence, her soul was giving her the slightly reduced pain reduction in her back for most of her life without her knowing it. She hurt her back a long time ago and never knew that she hurt it until she started revealing it in her mid-40s. That's the nature of what a car accident, and her soul knows that. So, this is not to encourage people to try to reach their soul in various ways. It's part of it. It's the building of the energy of who you are as a soul on this plane. You are already there, vibrating beautifully for them no matter what. It can be tragedy that unites others. It can be freedom that unites others. It can be the bold witnessing of who we are. But please remember to validate your experiences in various ways before you start predicting the deaths. So many people are in the vision of prediction of death that they then feel guilty when it happens. Brenda knows what's happening before it happens, but not when it happens. It's not meant to be stopped for the most part. She hasn't done that vision. It's kind of a mixed bag, because it depends on the souls that she's working with. So, that's the highlight of the diary for most people, is to remember to highlight the beauty in those journals. So many will keep the gratitude journals or the diary, put that in your diary. Please put it in the diary. Please put something in the diary. It doesn't have to be a gratitude. It could be what went right for me today. What went right for me today? Or what went well? And it can be the simplest little thing. And when you highlight, I did this, I did this, I did this. And look, no tragedy today. That's where some people are. I'm in a continual spiral of destruction is where some people are. And others are like, oh no, I just keep sitting there going, oh yeah, everything's fine. Everything works out. I understand. I'm cherished because I know that vision of the spiraling of our emotional beings, right? I lift myself up. Boy, and then I have a fall sometimes in my energy level. Sometimes it's literally just my soul telling me you need to take a break because you're working a lot of energy on this idea of being able to produce for people. So anyways, with that said, highlight the positive, keep track of your intuition, your intuitional hits, your intuition hits. Those are your highlights of the day. I love who I am is also to be included in each and every diary entry. I love who I am. Whether or not my mind says it to me or not, when I write that down, that's where you need to go. I love who I am. I break free from the conditioning of everyone else on this plane who's telling me there's something wrong with who I am. Not with the behaviors or the beliefs or whatever. You as a soul are good no matter what. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You will hear messages that are basically about my own system. And that is the nature that many are saying, oh, I'm here to fly free of any constraints that others have placed upon me. That's where some of us are. So that's why some of those things that can be constricting for our own souls are very much, freeing for others. So it's not like it's good or bad. It's not all bad for everybody. Okay? Find the simplest little joy in your life. Now for me, right now, this is a cup of chai tea. Love you a latte, okay? I say that to myself. So with that, I want to say thank you for watching. And as always, remember, stay curious, wise, and soulful. Have a great day.